I'm Harper. I'm 28 years old. 12 years ago, my parents handed me a plane ticket to a different country and said, "Your real family is there." They drove me to the airport on Christmas Eve with a single suitcase. I was 16. I was wearing pajamas. My adoptive mother didn't even look at me when she closed the car door. "Your real family is overseas," she said through the window. "You've never been ours." I built a new life from nothing. I learned a new language. I put myself through college. I became an architect. I stopped crying about the past. Then a lawyer called and everything changed. Before I continue, if you find this story worth hearing, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to stay until the end. And wherever you're watching from, drop a comment with your location and local time. I'd love to know who's listening. Now, let me take you back to 3 weeks ago, the day a phone call from Provence turned my world upside down. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at my desk in Lyon reviewing blueprints for a renovation project when my phone rang. Unknown number, French area code I didn't recognize. "Miss Ashford." The voice was formal, measured. "My name is Jean-Pierre Dubois. I'm an estate attorney based in Provence." My stomach tightened. Estate attorney. That meant someone had died. "I'm calling regarding Marguerite Delacroix," he continued. "Your maternal grandmother." I almost dropped the phone. "I'm sorry, my grandmother." "Yes. I regret to inform you that Madame Delacroix passed away 2 weeks ago. She was 89. I couldn't speak. My adoptive parents had told me my grandmother died years ago. They said there was no one left. They said I had no family in France. They lied. "Miss Ashford, are you still there?" "Yes, I managed. I didn't know she was alive." There was a pause on the other end. When Maitre Dubois spoke again, his voice was gentler. Madame Delacroix was aware of that. She left specific instructions in her will. "You are her sole beneficiary." "Sole beneficiary?" "She left you everything. The vineyard estate in Provence, the villa, her investments. In total, approximately 23 million euros. The number didn't register. It couldn't be real. "There's something else you should know," he added. "Your grandmother hired investigators to track your life after you arrived in France. She knew where you were. She knew what you accomplished. She watched from a distance for 12 years. My throat closed. A stranger who shared my blood had watched me struggle, watched me survive, and never reached out. "Why?" I whispered. "Why didn't she contact me?" "She had her reasons. They're explained in a letter she left for you." He paused. "But first, there's a complication. Someone is contesting the will." "Who?" "Your adoptive parents, Richard and Diane Ashford." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my apartment floor with a glass of wine I couldn't drink, staring at the wall, and the memories came flooding back. Christmas Eve, I was 16. There was no tree that year. No presents. I remember thinking it was strange, but I didn't ask questions. I'd learned not to ask questions. My adoptive father called me downstairs after dinner. My adoptive mother was already wearing her coat. A suitcase? My suitcase sat by the front door. "What's going on?" I asked. Richard handed me an envelope. Inside was a plane ticket. One-way Paris. "Your real family is in France," Diane said. She wouldn't look at me. "Your mother died there. Your people are there. You've never really been ours, Harper. We tried, but," she shrugged. "It's time." I remember the smell of gingerbread from the neighbor's house. I remember the Christmas lights on the street. I remember begging. "Please, what did I do? I'll do better." "I'll the car's running," Richard said. "Get your coat." They drove me to O'Hare in silence. Diane never turned around, not once. When we pulled up to the departure terminal, she stayed in the car. Richard walked me to the curb, handed me my suitcase, and said, "There's an address inside a group home in Marseilles. They're expecting you." Then he got back in the car and drove away. I was 16 years old, standing in an airport in my pajamas, holding a suitcase and a plane ticket to a country where I didn't speak the language. They told me my mother died in Marseilles. She didn't. I learned years later she died in Paris, a car accident when I was 2. Even that small detail, they lied about that too. And now 12 years later, they wanted my inheritance. The phone buzzed. A text from Maitre Dubois. "Call me tomorrow. There's something in the adoption file you need to see." The legal documents arrived by courier the next morning. I spread them across my kitchen table and read the complaint 3 times because surely I was misunderstanding something. Richard and Diane Ashford, plaintiffs versus estate of Marguerite Delocroix. Their argument was simple. They had raised me for 13 years. They had fed me, clothed me, educated me. Under certain interpretations of American family law, they claimed a right to a portion of any inheritance I received as a minor or would have received had they maintained custody. They were asking for 50%, $11.5 million, for abandoning me at an airport. I called Sophie, my best friend and co-worker. She came over during her lunch break and found me sitting on the floor surrounded by papers. "They can't actually win this, can they?" I asked. Sophie picked up the complaint and scanned it, her jaw tightened. "They're not trying to win," she said. "They're trying to pressure you into settling. They know you don't want a public fight. They're betting you'll pay them to go away." She was right. I hated conflict. I'd spent 12 years trying to forget these people existed. How did they even find out about the inheritance? I asked. "I only learned about it yesterday." Sophie scrolled through her phone and handed it to me. It was a Facebook post from Diane. A long, tearful message about the daughter we lost and family being torn apart by greed. She'd tagged me. My old American account I hadn't used in years. The post had 3,000 shares. And buried in the comments, someone had written, "I heard she inherited millions from some European relative, her poor parents." Diane had made sure everyone knew. She was controlling the narrative before I even knew there was a story to tell. My phone rang. Unknown number. I recognized it this time. I answered. "Harper, sweetheart." Diane's voice thick with tears. "We need to talk." I should have hung up. I didn't. "Diane," I kept my voice flat. "Why are you suing me?" "Suing?" She let out a wounded gasp. "Honey, that's such an ugly word. We're not suing you. We're just trying to protect what's fair for the family." "What family? You told me I was never part of yours." "Oh, Harper." Her voice cracked perfectly. The same crack I remembered from every time she wanted something. "You were so young. You misunderstood. We were trying to help you find your roots. We thought it was what you needed." I heard Richard's voice in the background, muffled. Then he came on the line. "Harper, let's not make this adversarial. Your grandmother, rest her soul. She didn't know our family. She didn't know how much we sacrificed for you. If she had, she would have wanted us included. You sent me away. We sent you to find your heritage. That's different. I was 16. I didn't speak French. I ended up in a group home. And look at you now." Diane cut in back on the phone. "You turned out fine. That proves we made the right decision." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You're serious?" I said. "You actually believe that?" "We believe in family," Richard said, "unlike some people." "Here's what I believe," I said. And my voice was steadier than I expected. "I believe I'm done with this conversation. I believe your lawyers can talk to my lawyer, and I believe that if you contact me directly again, I'll consider it harassment. Harper, goodbye, Richard. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but something inside me felt solid for the first time in days. I'd spent 12 years wondering what I'd say to them if I ever got the chance. Now I knew not much. I didn't owe them explanations. I didn't owe them closure. I owed them nothing. They didn't listen. 2 days later, Diane called again, this time from a different number. Baby girl, please don't shut us out. Her voice trembled. We miss you so much. All those years apart, it broke my heart. I sat on my couch, phone pressed to my ear, and let her talk. I wanted to understand what I was dealing with. Mommy just wants to make things right, she continued. We can be a family again. All this legal nonsense. It's just paperwork. What matters is that we love you. If you love me, I said slowly, why are you suing me? We're not suing you, sweetheart. We're protecting you. That French lawyer, he doesn't have your best interests at heart. He's just after his fees. But we know you. We raised you. Richard's voice came through. Speaker phone. Harper. Let's meet in person in Provence. We'll fly over next week, sit down like a family, and sort this out without lawyers poisoning everything. Without lawyers, I repeated. Just us, the people who matter. I thought about what Sophie had said. They're betting you'll pay them to go away. I don't think that's a good idea, I said. Why not? Diane's voice sharpened for just a second before softening again. Honey, we're your parents. You can trust us. You drove me to an airport in my pajamas and left me there. Silence. Then Richard, you're remembering it wrong. You wanted to go. You were curious about France. I was crying. I begged you not to leave me. Children cry about everything. It doesn't mean I'm not a child anymore. I cut him off, and I'm not remembering it wrong. Diane made a small wounded sound. You're breaking my heart, Harper. You broke mine first. I hung up. I called Maitre Dubois that afternoon. They want to meet in Provence, I told him. Without lawyers, they called it a family discussion. Absolutely not. His voice was firm. That's a negotiating tactic. They want to pressure you into an agreement before you understand your legal position. I figured, Miss Ashford Harper, there's something I need to tell you. I've been looking into the adoption records. Your grandmother requested copies years ago. I sat down. What did you find? Richard Ashford worked in banking in the early 2000s. Specifically, he handled international wire transfers for high net worth clients. He paused, including the Delacroix family. The room tilted slightly. He knew about my grandmother before they adopted me. It appears so. I can't prove intent yet, but the timeline is suggestive. I thought about 13 years of birthday cards signed, Love, Mom and Dad. 13 years of being told I was lucky they chose me. 13 years of feeling like I owed them something I could never repay. Was any of it real? I whispered. I don't know, Maitre Dubois said gently. But I have a contact, a social worker in Chicago who handled adoptions in that period. She's retired now, but she kept copies of her files. She's been following the news coverage of the lawsuit. News coverage. Diane Ashford has been quite active on social media. Several local outlets in the U.S. have picked up the story. Ungrateful daughter abandons loving parents. That sort of angle. My stomach turned. The social worker reached out to me directly, he continued. She says she has information. She's willing to share it. What kind of information? She didn't specify, but she used an interesting word. He paused. She said she wanted to make things right. That night, an email arrived from a woman named Claire Donovan. The subject line read, I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. They showed up anyway. I was at Maitre Dubois's office in Aix-en-Provence reviewing documents when his assistant knocked on the door. There are people in the lobby. They say they're your parents. My blood went cold. Tell them they're insisting. They brought a young woman with them. They say they won't leave until you see them. Maitre Dubois looked at me. You don't have to do this. I know. I stood up, but I need to see their faces. I need to know what I'm dealing with. We walked to the lobby together. There they were. Richard in a pressed blazer looking like he'd just stepped off a golf course. Diane in a floral dress, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. And beside them, a young woman I barely recognized. Megan, the girl they'd adopted 2 years after me. The one who got piano lessons and summer camps and a bedroom that wasn't in the basement. She'd grown up. 24 now, I calculated. Pretty nervous. Harper. Diane rushed toward me, arms outstretched. I stepped back. Don't touch me. She froze, her face crumpling. Baby, I'm not your baby. I'm not your daughter. I'm not your anything. Richard put a hand on Diane's shoulder. Harper, there's no need for hostility. We came all this way. The least you can do is hear us out. You came uninvited. You're interfering with legal proceedings, and you brought. I looked at Megan. Why are you here? Megan's voice was small. They said you might want to meet me. That we could be sisters. Something twisted in my chest. It wasn't her fault. None of this was her fault. You're not part of this. I told her as gently as I could. This isn't about you. Diane started sobbing louder. She turned to Maitre Dubois. You see what she's become? We lost our daughter. He looked at her evenly. Madam Ashford, my client has asked you not to touch her. I suggest you respect that boundary. Boundary? Richard scoffed. Family doesn't have boundaries. Mine does, I said. After they left, escorted out by building security after Richard raised his voice, Maitre Dubois closed the door to his office and pulled out a worn manila folder. I was going to wait, he said, but I think you need to see this now. He spread several documents across his desk. I recognized the format. Adoption agency paperwork dated 2001. These are copies from the original file. Your grandmother obtained them through legal channels years ago. I scanned the pages. Standard forms, background checks, home study reports. Then I saw it. A single line highlighted in yellow. Family background of child, maternal grandmother, Marguerite Delacroix, residing in Provence, France. Significant assets reported. They knew, I said. The words came out hollow. They knew before they signed the adoption papers. Maitre Dubois pointed to another document. This is a note from the agency caseworker. She flagged the application because Richard Ashford asked multiple questions about your biological family's financial status. She found it unusual. Unusual. The word she used in her notes was concerning, but the adoption went through anyway. Budget cuts, understaffing. You know how these things work. I stared at the papers. 13 years of my life, reduced to a line item. Your grandmother tried to make contact when you were 8, he continued. She sent letters, gifts. The Ashfords returned everything unopened. They told her you didn't want a relationship. I didn't know she existed. I know. His voice was soft. She knew that, too, eventually. That's why she kept her distance after you came to France. She didn't want to intrude on the life you'd built. She watched me struggle for 12 years. She watched you succeed. There's a difference. He paused. She wanted you to know you could do it on your own. Then she wanted to give you everything she had. My eyes burned. There's more in these files, he said. But it will take time to verify. The social worker, Claire Donovan, she has the rest of the pieces. I wiped my face. When can I talk to her? She's flying in next week. She wants to testify in person. That night, I read Claire Donovan's email 7 times. Dear Harper, my name is Claire Donovan. In 2001, I was the caseworker assigned to your adoption. I processed the paperwork for Richard and Diane Ashford. I've carried guilt about your case for 25 years. Something felt wrong from the beginning. The Ashfords asked too many questions about your biological family, specifically about assets, properties, inheritance potential. I noted my concerns in the file, but my supervisor said I was being paranoid. Some adoptive parents just want to know the full picture, she said. I let it go. I shouldn't have. Last month, I was cleaning out my home office before retirement. I found backup copies of files I'd saved, including yours, and I found something I'd forgotten about. An email Richard Ashford accidentally CC'd to the agency when corresponding with his private attorney. The email discussed the long-term financial potential of the child and establishing legal parenthood as a prerequisite to inheritance claims. The date on that email was December 15, 2014, 9 days before they sent you to France. I'm attaching a scan of the original. I verified its authenticity with our IT department and with the attorney's former firm. I don't know if this helps your case. I hope it does. But more than that, I want you to know you were never the problem. You were never unlovable. You were a child who deserved better and the system failed you. I'm flying to Provence next week. I'll testify to whatever you need me to testify to. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder for you back then. I'm fighting now. Claire, I sat in the dark for a long time holding my phone. 9 days. They'd planned it 9 days before Christmas. All those years I'd wondered what I'd done wrong, what I could have changed. And the answer was nothing. It was never about me. It was always about money. I need to pause here for a moment. If you're still watching, I have a question for you. Have you ever met someone like Richard and Diane? Someone who performs love when it's convenient and discards you when it's not? I'd really like to know. Drop a comment and tell me your story. And if you want to see what happened when everything came out in public, when they finally had to face the truth in front of witnesses, hit that like button so I know you're still with me. Now, back to the story. The Ashfords requested a family meeting before the formal mediation hearing. Against Maitre Dubois' advice, I agreed, but with conditions: public place, witnesses present, no private conversations. They chose a café in the center of Aix-en-Provence. When Sophie and I arrived, I understood why. Richard had invited an audience. 4 well-dressed Americans sat at nearby tables, positioned too perfectly to be coincidental. Business associates, I guessed. People who could later testify that they'd seen Harper Ashford be unreasonable and cold to her loving parents. Diane spotted me first. She was wearing a cream-colored cardigan, soft, maternal. Her eyes were already wet. Harper, thank God. She reached for my hand across the table. I didn't give it to her. Richard got straight to business. We've discussed it with our lawyers. 40%. That's a fair compromise. 40% of what you're not entitled to. Of what we earned. His voice stayed measured, but his jaw tightened. 13 years of raising you. Do you know how much that cost us? I wasn't aware parenting came with an invoice. Diane made a small wounded sound. We sacrificed everything for you. Richard left a promotion to spend more time at home. I thought about my bedroom in their basement. I thought about Megan's bedroom upstairs with the bay window and the walk-in closet. Is that what you told yourselves? It's the truth. Richard leaned forward. Your grandmother didn't understand our situation. If we can sit down together, maybe we can make the lawyer see what that family should come before paperwork. One of the American men at the next table nodded approvingly. I looked at Richard, then at Diane, then at the carefully arranged audience. You planned this, I said quietly. You wanted witnesses. You wanted people to see me refuse. Richard's smile didn't waver. I wanted people to see who you really are. Fine, I stood up. Then let them watch. Diane stood up, too. Her voice rose, pitched for the surrounding tables. You all need to understand something. She pressed a hand to her chest. We rescued this girl. Her mother was a drug addict who died in the streets. We gave Harper everything. A home, an education, a future, and this is how she repays us. The cafe went quiet, heads turned. I felt Sophie tense beside me. My mother was a school teacher, I said. She died in a car accident when I was 2. She was sober her entire life. That's what they told you. Diane's eyes glittered. But we saw the records. We know what kind of family you come from. Richard stepped in, voice heavy with rehearsed sorrow. Harper has always had issues. We tried therapy. We tried everything, but some children. He shook his head. Blood will tell. The American audience murmured sympathetically. One woman actually patted Diane's arm. I stood frozen. The lies were so big, so shameless that for a moment I didn't know how to respond. Then a voice cut through the noise. I don't know who you people are. An older French woman had risen from her table near the window. Her accent was thick, her expression disgusted. But I know what I'm hearing, and if this is how Americans speak about their children in public to strangers, then I am ashamed for you. The cafe went silent again. Diane's face flushed red. I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it. The panic behind the performance, the calculation behind the tears. I'm done here, I said. The next time we speak, it will be in front of a mediator, and I will have documentation that proves everything you just said is a lie. Richard's smile finally cracked. Documentation. Letters, records, emails. I paused. You should have been more careful about who you CC'd. I walked out before they could respond. I made it 3 blocks before I started shaking. Sophie caught my arm and steered me into a quiet alley between buildings. I leaned against the stone wall, breathing hard. They called my mother a drug addict.